kills don't mean that I get you killed too. I'm posting this because I can't get the sound out of my head anymore, and because if something happens to me, I want there to be a record that I tried to say something. I work in search and rescue, and most trips start the same way. A knot of adrenaline in your chest, and a kind of quiet that settles in once the rotors spin up. It's not awkward silence, it's focus. A part of your brain that wants to chat usually gets shelved because there's a chance, sometimes a slim one, that you're about to keep someone alive. You don't want to waste that headspace on small talk. The night was quieter than usual. The call came in clipped and hesitant. It was a hiker, a male in his mid-30s with a broken leg, possibly compounded. Coordinates flagged as restricted in the area. The dispatcher paused before reading them out, like she was testing whether or not the words would come back to bite her. I asked what the restriction was. She said, night ingress waiver required. I asked why. Authorization is still being processed, she said. That was already wrong. Usually, you get a reason. Things like wildlife corridor, radio quiet zone, training airspace, etc. At least something you can wrap your head around. This time, though? This time, they just listed the rules. No spotlights, no ground lights, no hovering longer than absolutely necessary, and land only if the conditions were verified as safe. And if visual confirmation failed, pull out and reassess at first light. They also had us load up. More than normal. Rifles, shotguns, extra magazines. Stuff we technically carried sometimes for bears or mountain lions, but this was excessive. A kind of loadout that teaches you which questions not to ask. I signed where they told me to sign, and the pilot didn't comment, he just checked the weight of the bird twice, and we lifted just before midnight. As soon as we were airborne, the chatter urge died, and the focus set in. The cabin lights dimmed, leaving just enough glow to read the instruments. Below us, the land had flattened into texture. The trees rocked and shadow stitched into something unreadable. We crossed into the restricted zone, and that's when the pilot finally spoke. "How mangled's your guy?" he asked. I didn't catch it at first. The rotor shredded through the words. "What?" I asked in confusion. He didn't bother repeating it the same way. How tore up is he?" "Just a broken leg," I said. "Alert, and breathing fine." "Jesus," he muttered, easing off on the throttle. And that's when I saw them. 2 heat signatures near the tree line. One of them wasn't moving at all. The other one, however, was. The moving one looked wrong. Not fuzzy or distorted, just wrong. Like something moving that shouldn't have had the anatomy for it. It was big, too. Bigger than any reason it had to be. Pilot slowed. Not hovering, just bleeding speed. "I don't like this," he said. We're right on top of him," I responded. "Down and up in under 2 minutes." He tilted the bird slightly, watching the display. "You see that?" he asked. "I see it." "That big one, right there?" He keeps tracking us. Every time he adjusted laterally, it adjusted too. Not chasing or fleeing, just staying where it needed to be. "You see the other heat source?" he asked. "What other? Yeah," he said. "Exactly. That's what I'm saying." My stomach dropped. "That's him. But that's the hiker." "No," the pilot said. "That's still one of them." I argued. I said the guy was alive when he called in. I said broken legs don't kill you overnight if you don't panic. I said that we were armed, and I said that we were right there. The pilot didn't raise his voice, though. "I'm not putting this bird down," with that huge thing lurking around, especially if I can't use a spotlight to see it. And circle wider, I said. Give me 30 seconds. Can't, he said. Rules. Yeah, well, rules don't mean shit if he dies. He finally broke his gaze from his display and looked at me. Not angry, not scared, just tired. Rules don't mean I get you killed too. Below us, something shifted. The big heat signature moved faster, arcing around the clearing like it was testing boundaries. The smaller one, the still one, twitched. An arm, maybe? Or rather, something shaped like one. I'm pulling out, the pilot said. We're right here, I shouted, and I hated how thin it sounded with the rotor spinning. We didn't wait for another second before the pilot pulled up, and our altitude climbed higher and higher. As we did, I swear I heard a scream. I know rotors can mess with your head. I know adrenaline fills gaps, but the sound I heard had a rhythm. It broke. Tried again. It sounded human enough that my body reacted before my brain could argue with it. The heat signature followed us longer than it should have, staying just outside the wash. Then it stopped, like it had learned something and didn't need to keep watching, didn't need to keep following. The report I filed later was clean and by the book. I said unsafe conditions, unable to land, visual obstructions. No mention of the movement patterns, no mention of the heat signatures that didn't add up. And no one asked me to clarify. We went back at first light. Daylight makes liars out of fear. The area looked ordinary. Trees, dirt, a shallow ravine cutting through the slope where the coordinates said the hiker should have been. But there was blood everywhere. Too much for a broken leg. It was pooled and smeared and sprayed across rocks and tree bark. No drag marks that made sense either. No tracks that lined up with anything we knew how to follow. And most of all, there was no body. We searched until we were told to stop. The official cause was exposure. The file was flagged. The coordinates were redacted from the copy I was allowed to keep, and the weapons logged was sealed separately. It wasn't the first time I'd seen that done after that. I still work in search and rescue, and I still find the focus settle in when the rotors spin up. I tell people to stay on marked trails and respect the closures. But there are zones I don't volunteer for anymore. Places where the gear is heavier than the injuries justify. Places where you're told not to use the light because seeing clearly would make the decision that much harder. Sometimes, when the chopper gets loud enough, I think I hear something underneath it. And I have to tell myself that it's just the adrenaline. I have to. Thank you for staying until the end of the show. I appreciate you giving me some of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again. If you can tell me what you thought of today's episode, that would help me so I know what things to give you more of. This story comes from Reddit user inkinthebasement, who writes stories that exist in the space between what feels real and what is real on Reddit. I really enjoyed how the story's greatest trick is making the rules the real monster, not the heat signature or whatever is moving on the trees, but the paperwork for what they can and can't do. The clean report, the sealed weapons log, the redacted coordinates. And by the time that the narrator says that it wasn't even the first time that they'd seen it happen, I feel like the real horror has nothing to do with what's in the woods, and that it's the system that already has a protocol, and that protocol didn't include saving anybody, which in a sense makes it a government that you can't really trust, and a government you can't trust is honestly a lot more frightening than a monster in the woods. I am glad I was able to read this story though, and Hope you were glad to have listened. Since you probably want to hear more of my voice, you should tune in for tomorrow's new episode, or if you got time, you should go back and catch the last one. I'll be doing my best to post daily on YouTube, Spotify, and all other platforms for the remainder of the year. I challenge myself, so let me know if you like this stuff and I'll keep making more of it. The link to my podcast and this story will be in the description down below. And if you want to listen to more of my voice, you can listen to all of the Chilling Stories episodes in the series here. Furthermore, if you have a story that you'd like to recommend to me, you can reach out to me via Reddit, Discord, or email. Those methods of communication will be placed in the description for your convenience. Again, if you enjoyed today's episode, tune in for the next story or just go back and catch the last one. But until then, I hope you watch the shadows that lurk just beyond your sight. Thank you for listening, and to all, a good night.